Red what?
Perfect. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Jon Deitz Playbook. Except now, instead of being stuck virtually across the county from each other, we're actually able to gather in Apex HQ for the first time in
Love it.
months, months and months. We're going to just have a little bit of a casual conversation here while our producer, Mr. Sam, honestly, my younger brother, checks our audio levels to make sure that we're coming in loud and clear. And then after that, we'll go ahead and get started. So if you are watching this right now and you know somebody that needs some good motivation in their life, I picked some questions, and actually, they're not questions, they're statements from the playbook that I think are going to be able to give people a little bit of motivation in this time after all of this COVID stuff is happening, all the other political unrest that's happening in the country. There's some things that people, I just think that there's so many factors that play into stress that people are dealing with right now that everybody just needs some good old fashioned motivation. So that's kind of the theme that I centered these statements around. And so if you know somebody that needs a little bit of motivation in their life right now, start a watch party on your page. It's really easy. All you have to do is go back down to the bottom right hand corner of the little box you're watching me through right now, click share, and then click start watch party. And what that does is it lets everybody know in your network that you're watching us right now and that you want to hang out with them watching us. So I would appreciate it if you would do that. Sam, are we good?
Yeah, audio levels are good.
Perfect. So, John, welcome back, my friend.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
So, like I said, I picked some of these statements really just based off of maybe an internal need for a little bit of motivation as well, right? But we'll just dive right in with this first one. And this is probably out of all of the statements that you have, there's probably two that I use the most. And one of them is if you win, what are you winning? Right?
If you win, what have you won?
There it is.
And if you've won nothing, let them win.
And that's number one. This is the second one that I use all the time. And this one is work will win when wishing won't.
Right.
So why don't we just dive right into that one?
Well, here's the thing. We all have dreams. We all have wishes. And we all have, so, but there comes a point where it has to be backed up with some effort, and depending on the dream, a legitimate, hard-working effort. If you want to learn how to drive a car, it takes some effort. If you want to play Major League Baseball, it takes, an enormous amount of time, dedication, and effort. So, like I said, we all wanted to be an actor or an author or whatever, pilot, so you dream and you wish, but it's the hard work, consistent, that will actually make these dreams come true. And the other thing about that is, oftentimes, there's a tremendous lesson in failure. You don't win a lot. You don't learn a lot from winning, but you normally learn a lot from failure. And on your path to success of this dream, whatever it is, oftentimes you get scuffed up along the way. And it's just a matter of how many times you can continue to get up, dust your pants off, and move forward. And then end up off track only to back up, dust your pants off, and move forward again. So work will win when wishing won't.
And I think that one of the biggest things that I'm trying to do right now is, I'm sitting trying to talk to all these different small business owners and kind of go around the city, and whether it's live streaming to try to highlight a new location, or it's trying to take pictures of different places and post them so that people know about businesses that are reopening and everything like that. I think that it's really easy to potentially slip into a valley or into some type of crevice that you get stuck in, just wishing that things were not happening. whether it's the COVID or it's any of the other factors that are playing into the world right now, you can wish as much as you would like that it would go back. I hear that a lot. I wish that there were things that we could go back before March when the pandemic really hit
Right.
the U.S. And I look at those people and I ask them, where would we be right now? There's no way that you can predict what would have happened if the pandemic hadn't happened. I compare it really lightly, right? Because obviously this is a massive scale. We're talking about a global pandemic, but being stuck at a red light on your way to work for way longer than you think you should have been, or being stuck in traffic, and then the classic example that my grandmother always used to use with me is that there was a reason why you were stuck at that
Right.
red light.
Right.
You may have gotten hit by a semi had you been on the highway 5 minutes earlier, right? And so with all of the stuff that's happening in the world, I picked that one because I really do think that work will win when wishing won't, right? You can sit and you can wish as many different things into, try to manifest it into existence, but until you actually put boots on the ground and start moving, it's going to stay in a dream state and it's not actually going to come to fruition. So when you're trying to restart your businesses, or you're trying to come up with new campaigns, or you're trying to like hold your family together, or you're trying to do pretty much anything, right? You have to start acting at some point. It can't just be wishing. It can't just be talk. It can't just be, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm dreaming about this someday. You have to, if you want those dreams to become a reality, you have to put one foot in front of the other today, so that maybe by the grace of God, 3 years from now, it becomes a reality.
Plus, a lot of things, I had a very successful older gentleman say to me one time that life is just happen chance. And I said, no, I don't think. But the more I thought about it, there's a lot to life that is just happen chance. It just happens. Now, maybe you don't end up being on the major league team by happen chance, but maybe you have opportunities that can take you down the path to get you there by happen chance. But
Right.
one thing about the COVID that I think is interesting is a lot of people have lost businesses. There's been a lot of down, ugly parts of it. The flip side is there's been an awful lot of families that have drawn closer.
Mm-hmm.
There's people that had to spend a lot more time. I know it's in my home. We've had a lot of great quality time together because of this COVID. I see more people walking in my neighborhood than ever before as families with dogs. And so even though sometimes things don't look as bright side as we would like to think, if you look, you can usually find something good in it. I had dreams in my life. Some of them didn't come true. And we talk about it in my family sometimes because they didn't come true. We are together in this place at this time. If some of those dreams would have came true, I very well may not have been here at this time. So anyway, at the end of the day, you got to work. If you want the secret to success in life is not just work, it's hard work. So work will win when wishing won't.
I love it. I love it. Now this next one, I mean, obviously there's this theme right now is centered around whether it's the self isolation, or it's the businesses failing, or it's the lack of motivation, whatever it might be. I find this next statement, some people look at as a curse, and other people look at as a blessing. Okay, I for one tend to take the side of looking at this as a blessing, but it's probably because I'm a pseudo extrovert, as what I like to say, right? I can flip that switch on, but at the end of the day, and Sam knows better than pretty much anybody that when I get that face, it's just time to leave him alone. I need my book, I need my recliner, and nobody talks to me. Like that is my me time. And so this next statement is, we all only get 3 to 5 friends. And like I said, some people may look at that as a curse, but I have a feeling that this is going to really kind of be more of a blessing, with the quality over quantity.
Yeah. Well, it's number one, it's just reality. I got that from a mentor and a dear friend in my life. His name's Ron Blackledge. He coached for 40 years, coached in the NFL, coached in college, coached in high school. Knows more people than anyone I know. And so one time I was talking to him and I said something to him about, how many friends do you think you have? And I knew he would say, a couple thousand. And he said, he goes, John, if you're really, really lucky, counting your spouse, you have 3 to 5 friends. And it just coming from him, it just
Wow.
blew me away because I know he's got a ton of friends. But and his analogy was when your back's against the wall, he said everybody wants to golf with a football coach. Everybody wants to golf with a banker. But when your back's against the wall and you can't offer anything great to people, you start to see then who your friends truly are and aren't. And so if you're lucky, you have, 3 to 5 friends. And when I look at my life, that's not too far from being accurate in my life. Because it's just, and we all know a lot of people. We all have a lot of friendly acquaintances, but there's very few of us that have more friends, close friends, than that. And so that was a great lesson in life. It was a great thing for me to come to realize as a young man, because you see things on TV and now with social media, everybody's got to have friends, everybody's got to have all that kind of stuff. And it's like, and that just isn't reality. And I use this, please let me make this clear, as a metaphor only. But a friend will help you move. A true friend will help you move a body. And if you think about that, there's not many of those in your life. And so,
when you call up and they're like, I don't want to know who's in the trunk. I don't know what happened.
Right.
Just where are we burying it?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's just, and there's just not many of those. So, so you have to just realize as you're going through life, when you look around, if you have 3 to 5, you're really fortunate because a lot of people don't even have that. If you have more than that, then good for you. But if you have 3 to 5, you're really 3 to 5 people that don't want you for anything except for just to be your friend.
No. I'll tell you what, I've got a couple of shovels in the barn if we ever do need to drop one. And I got a good couple of spots. I won't tell, the audience. They don't need to know where the spots are.
Just as well.
Right. Plausible deniability for all of you guys. Now, I use the same analogy when I think of the 3 to 5 people, right? Because I always say that people come in tiers, right? You have like the acquaintance level, and you have the friendship level, and then you have that 3 to 5 level. And I really, truly only do, outside of family, have one hand worth of people that I could call at 3 o'clock in the morning with a dead guy in the trunk, and they wouldn't ask any questions. Before I get into the second half of what I've got to throw at that, if you're watching this right now and you're enjoying what is happening on the Deitz Playbook, go ahead and hit, like I said at the beginning, right down in the right-hand corner of your screen, there should be a little share button. Click share, click start a watch party so that we can get more and more people to get some of this wealth of wisdom that we're offering here at the Apex Communications Network. And thank you all for tuning in if you are already here. If you are enjoying some of these types of statements, go ahead and submit some stories of your own. As we're telling our stories, go ahead and you can email them to info@chasetheapex.com, or go ahead and drop them right in the messages and Sam can pull them up on the screen as he's producing the show. So we have those tiers of human. And my biggest thing is that you can have a lot of acquaintances, right? There are a lot of people that need to be not kept at a distance. That's the wrong word, but they have a purpose in your life, and they know that, that it's a networking thing. You're friendly, and you consider yourself acquaintances. This is people that are like, a friend of a friend or somebody that you met once or twice. What I find really aggravating is when people treat that acquaintance level like they're strangers. There's a difference between a complete stranger and an acquaintance. When you have that person, you should take the time to get to know things about them. You can't just be completely shut off all the time. A lot of the people that I interact with, I say, hey, they're surprised when I remember their daughter just had a birthday party, or they're thrilled when I remember that they told me one time that their favorite drink was an Acres Old Fashioned. But you remember those small details about people, and that's what really creates that community, right? And then you get from that acquaintance level, and those people are not people that you necessarily hang out with all the time and whatever else, but you get to that friendship level, and these are people that are in your life, and they're there for you consistently. They're not these diehards, but they're closer than just the acquaintance. They hang out at birthday parties with you. They come to family events, maybe. They're consistently at your bonfires or whatever else. But if it were to come down to it, they're going to take care of themselves before they take care of you. Now, that next echelon, that final 3 to 5 people, it's okay to only have those 3 to 5. As John kind of said, that's really reality, and the thing is that it takes a lot of emotional energy to be that transparent with people. So 3 to 5 people that know everything about you, that's already a lot of emotional energy that you're pouring into that. I can't even imagine having 1,000 people know everything about me that those 3 to 5 people do. And I also know things about those 3 to 5 people that I'm going to take to the grave with me. So I can't imagine dealing with the weight of all of those thousands of people. And I think that's where social media can kind of get dangerous a little bit.
Yeah. However, you got to remember, like I tell my kids, you got to meet 1,000 people before you find that one that fits the template of what kind of person you want in your life. Once you find that person, nurture that relationship, invest in it, become a good friend to them, and you got to only hope that they become a good friend to you. But it takes legitimate, sincere, humble effort to do that. Then you go through another 1,000 people, and finally the template fits on somebody else, and now you got 2 friends.
Now, when you say invest in them, what do you mean by investing in that relationship or that friendship?
Caring, knowing when their kid's having a birthday party, being there when they find out that they have cancer, being there when they find out that when they want to talk about infidelity, being there when they're having financial issues, and legitimately caring about whatever it is they're going through in their life. You have some things in common. Turns out you both like dirt bikes. Turns out you both like rodeo. Turns out you both like, and then you invest in that and enjoy each other's company. But when it's no different than a marriage. When it's one-sided, they say it's 50-50. It rarely is. But when you're putting in the 90 and they're putting in the 10, probably not that great of a friendship.
Right.
So, but when they're trying to outgive you and you're trying to outgive them, that usually comes at a pretty nice medium where you go, you know what? Nobody's counting. Listen, you called me last 3 times. I haven't called you at all. Or I've called you 7 times. You haven't called me. Yeah. When you quit counting, when you quit keeping score, and the friendship's just as good if you talk every day or if you talk once a month, it's still solid. But relationships are difficult sometimes and fleeting. And so when you find that person that fits that template, whatever that is, invest in it.
Yeah, because time is just going to keep ticking.
Time going to keep ticking. And like I always say about time isn't the seconds on the stopwatch. It's the hundredths of a second. That's how quick time's going. And you never get it back. Jan and I are now closer to the grave than we were when this thing started. You never get that back. It's one non-renewable resource. And so invest the time in who you want to invest in. It's hard to invest it in 1,000 people. But it's not that it's a little bit more manageable because you might have a job, you might have a family, you might have other things you have to do than to manage those friends in between there. But if you're going to have friends, be a quality friend and hope that you get a quality friend back.
Yeah. And even so he just said something that I really vibe with, that time is the only true non-renewable resource, right? There's a lot of people that I've had conversations with over COVID that are like, I feel like I can't invest in my friends, or I can't invest in the relationship because of social distancing, or because I have to self isolate, or because of X, Y, and Z. Um, you can buy as many things as you want. You can try to, plan fancy stuff. You can try to be showy and with your friends to try to earn their love, type of thing. Do we know some people that maybe have that type of mentality? Think inside of your head. Maybe you have some friends inside of your friend group that do that kind of stuff. But the thing is that it's crazy because time is free, but it's also the most valuable thing you have. And if you really think about it, with this COVID and everything else like that, some of the best times that I've had when I was self isolating up at Walsh, um, was just taking the time to say, "Hey, I'm going to block out half an hour. Let's get on a phone call and just spend some time. Let's get on. I mean, the stereotypical thing right now is Zoom or Skype or some type of video conference, and just spend some time together, even if it's just us watching each other eat a Chipotle bowl, across the county. But we're spending time, we're talking to each other, and genuinely caring about how the other person is doing."
You got to remember too, chemistry plays a big part in it. Sometimes we're just drawn to somebody, right? That's part of the template. If you're drawn to somebody, and usually if you're drawn, it doesn't matter if it's two men, two women, or man and woman. When you're drawn, you're usually, and if you're both drawn together, that makes it easier to go on with the relationship.
Yeah, well, that's like, I knew I couldn't let you off the hook the minute I sat down at Samantha's and you told me I looked like crap.
That's beautiful.
Your words, not mine.
All right, what's next?
I just told that story to Steve Kuhn the other day.
Did you?
Yep. I was like, "You want to know the first words that John Deitz ever said to me?" He was like, "Man, you look like you need a cup of coffee." And I was like, "You trying to tell me I look like crap?" And you're like, "You said it, not me." First conversation.
Yeah, I remember. I could tell you had a hard day or a hard night.
Yep. Yeah, that was. I talk about that all the time. Anyway, we've had a lot of good conversations since then, so it makes up. Number 3. So this one, really, I chose it as the last point because I think that we've kind of been building up. We talked about work will win when wishing won't. We talked about your friend group and everything like that. And this one is really internal. And we're coming up kind of on this almost like a precipice, right? We peaked for a little bit. We were kind of plateaued for a little while. Then, now COVID is spiking again, and there's other stuff that's going on, and the political races are going to happen until, November, and there's all this other stuff. So we're kind of back on this rise again, but there's a lot of people that are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel for the first time in months. And this last statement that I wanted to kind of address right at the end of the conversation is the only thing more exhilarating than life is a second chance.
True.
And I think that right now, more than anything, people need to hear whatever you've got on your heart surrounding that statement.
That statement came to me 5 years ago in Altman Hospital. I had pancreatitis. If you don't know what that is, I didn't either. But it's more life-threatening than a heart attack. And I was laying in the hospital, draped over the threshold of death, wondering if I was going to make it or not. And finally started coming out of the woods and feeling like, yeah, I think I'm going to make it. One of the telltale signs is in my family, we like to die on the 22nd of the month. Dad, sister, aunts, it's odd, but it happens quite a bit. And I was laying in the hospital on the 22nd, and I thought, boy, if I can just make it till midnight, I think I'm going to be okay. And by the grace of God, I made it till midnight. And so I have always been really, like an old friend of mine in high school said to me one time, I was always high on life. I've always loved life. Great. Enjoy it. Felt and feel like I'm the richest guy alive because of how much I enjoy my life, my family, my wife, my daughters. And when I realized that I was going to make it, there was a different level of exhilaration. And that's when that saying came to me. The only thing more exhilarating than life is a second chance at it. And whether we know it or not, for some of us, this COVID, when we get over it, whether it was a hoax, whether it's real, whether it's whatever, it has been devastating to a lot of people. And should we come out of the woods on this on the other side, I would hope for everybody it'd be a time of great exhilaration and realizing that, hey, we have another chance to build, or in some cases rebuild our business, build, in some cases rebuild our family. Because as great as this has been for me and my family, there's families that it hasn't been great for. I've heard about people that domestic violence is up and child abuse is up and different things like that, suicides. And so should we come out of this on the other end, that's a good time to just take a look at life and go, you know what, I'm ready to dust off my pants and take another shot at this, knowing that we all, in theory, could have died through this thing. So those of us that survived, you get a second chance at life. And life is literal life. Life is business life. Life is family life. Life is relationship life. But you have a second chance to make something great happen in your life, and don't squander it. Don't act like, poor me, anything out. Look at yourself like, hey man, I'm a survivor. Listen, luck doesn't live here. Luck doesn't live here. You have the opportunity to survive or surrender. And when you take the survive part, then you get to walk out of there with your life. And not everybody gets that chance. So survive or surrender. If you survive this, look at it as a blessing and an opportunity to start over again. And away you go. And it'll be, hopefully, if you work instead of wishing, if you work, you build your bar business back up, you build your restaurant business back up, you build your whatever it is, you build your family back up, you do whatever. But if you work at it, all of a sudden you can look back at this and say, hey, you know what? So like me, 5 years ago, I didn't know if I was going to make it or not. But you look back 5 years from now and you go, you know what? This is the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm better, I'm stronger, more financial, more in love, whatever the case is, have more friends. But so that ties back into the work will win, but be exhilarated that you survived this. Yeah. My thoughts.
I know my boxing trainer, Marquise Watkins, for United Boxing Gym, all the time would say, everybody needs punched in the mouth like once every year at a minimum to kind of make sure that they get knocked down a couple of tiers.
Glad I know.
Right. And so he basically was like, it's kind of a metaphor for basically that you get to a point where you get too comfortable, and then something comes into your life, makes you feel uncomfortable, and then you grow and you have a newfound appreciation for everything that's around you, whether it's the most simplistic stuff or, sometimes for people like, to your example with pancreatitis, at the hospital, I've had patients in the ICUs and stuff like that come back after, a perfect example is I took care of a guy that got smashed by a wrecking ball.
See?
He was welding upside down.
No good.
And got hit by a wrecking ball, broke his entire left side of his body. It was just demolished. Orthopedic nightmare.
Hence the term wrecking ball.
Yeah. Got wrecked for sure. Every bone in his body on that side was just gone. Pins and rods and screws everywhere. And, he came out, he had his little happy button for his pain meds, but bless you, by the way. Yep. But outside of that, he was one of the most positive people I had in the hospital that day. Definitely one of the most messed up, but he was so grateful for a newfound perspective and appreciation from everything that he had.
Second chance at it.
Yeah. He came out and it was just, I the same exact example for the kids that I used to take care of at Conquest when I worked at the rehabilitation center. A lot of them were so grateful to just have meals and to not have to worry about getting shot by a rival gang and not have to worry about all of these other things, that they were like, you know what, this really isn't that bad.
Yeah.
And then they would come out with this newfound perspective and go back out, and that we won't get into addressing why that system may or may not be broken, but either way, while they were in, at least they came to this new place of newfound perspective.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm really hoping, kind of along the same lines that John is saying, with everything coming to it. I mean, it's not over. COVID's not over by far, but as we're kind of coming out, we're finally starting to, I think, get used to it. One thing that the final piece of this kind of wrap up that I wanted to plug in is that COVID and all of the statements surrounding it, all of the things that have happened, the businesses shutting down, all of the family lives that have been affected, like to John's point, the domestic violence rising, or rises in child abuse or sexual assaults or whatever else has happened. All of the craziness in the world, it's almost like boot camp, right? Like when you go down to boot, you start down there, you're thrown into a completely new environment, you're stripped of everything. The world is upside down, and you have no idea what's going on. And one thing that they would say, the drill instructors would say at basic training, was it doesn't get easier, you get better at dealing with it. And with all of the stuff that's going on right now, because I'm using this metaphor, because COVID is far from over, it's not going to get easier necessarily, because of the fact that we're still going to see spikes and all this other kind of stuff in the illness, and there's going to be fluctuations. But you have the choice to either wish that it would go away or work to get better at dealing with it. But that takes purpose, that takes drive, that takes intention. One of the things that you could potentially do is start reading things like I've been talking about, different Marcus Aurelius quotes. Start reading stuff that strengthens the mind. Start surrounding yourself with people that lift you up. Reach out to those friends that you haven't talked to in a while, and have a conversation with somebody that you may have felt like you've been missing out on their life because you've both been so busy. Take the time and use it to your advantage. You're not going to be able to get it back one way or the other. So the way I look at it is, you can either complain about the fact that you're not able to do the things that you were doing prior to, or you can use it to your advantage to do things that you wish you could do that you couldn't do before.
As for COVID, don't you find it fascinating that they're struggling to find a vaccine for something you can kill with soap and sanitary hand wash? I find it interesting.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of good studies that came out. I don't know if I've told you this or not, that the company that we work with out in Cali just finished a study with a 97% cure rate on their
close
drug.
enough.
Yeah. And it's better than 50-50.
Yeah.
Or whatever the heck else we got going on.
Yeah.
And with all of the things that are going on with that, one thing that I'll ask is, from the medical perspective, understand that just because a treatment changes doesn't necessarily mean that we didn't know what we were doing prior to. One thing that happens in medicine, and it happens in all areas of life, is that you start with something that you know to treat something, and then as you start to learn more about it, you decide that, okay, this is a better option, and this is an even better option, and this is an even better option. When we were first putting people to sleep, we were just using nitric oxide without dosing protocols, hoping to God people didn't wake up in the middle of a surgery. And at this point, we're so titrated down to the microgram dose on different drugs to keep people asleep. That takes time. All of this stuff that's happening right now, all the treatments, people being intubated, not intubated, getting this type of fluid versus that type of fluid, all of it's in fluctuation, but that's good, because that means the medical community is learning. Don't think that it's because there's a miscommunication or people not talking. It's the medical community learning and growing and getting better at their jobs. So that's the kind of little plug that I'll give there at the end for the medical community. But John, thank you for stopping by.
Yeah, you're welcome.
As always. I love the fact. So if you haven't realized this yet, John does not prepare for these. Okay. We kind of done that on purpose, right? it's ironic because he doesn't prepare directly, but he spent his entire life preparing for this.
It's funny because today you sent me a text and you said, "Do you want to know what the questions are going to be?" And I said, "No."
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I want to point that out because it's important for you to understand that that this isn't scripted, right?
yeah, at all.
Not it's ad lib,
at all.
100%. I
Yeah.
picked these out. I have a running list of this Deitz Playbook that I pick phrases out of based on what I think the audience needs to hear that week. And this week, I felt like this is what needed to be heard. But again, when I texted John earlier today and I was like, "Hey man, do you want to know what the questions are for tonight?" It wasn't a long explanation because he's generally a man of few words. It was just the word no, period. That's it. So all of this is just raw, straight from the heart, his entire life kind of in a couple of short sentences. So each one of these episodes that you see, you get a glimpse into all of the different life experiences that John has had. And that's what really makes it so awesome for me to have him sitting here with us. The final thing that I'll ask is that if you didn't get a chance to watch this live, or you know somebody that didn't get a chance to tune in live because they were at dinner or whatever else, once the live stream is over, the nice thing is that it shows up on your Facebook page and you can still share it, right? So, and I watch those numbers. I keep track of who's doing it and who's not doing it. So if you don't do it, I'm going to know, right? If you go over and once the video populates, you go right down in the bottom right-hand corner. It's super easy. It takes like 5 seconds. I pinky promise. It won't cost you an arm and a leg. You just click the share button and then magically it's over and you've done your part to help share the message. All right. So that's my final plug. Until then, next week, we will be back at 7:00 right here at Apex headquarters and keep chasing that Apex.